Welcome everyone, today we're going to talk about micro ORM Dapper and some tricks with it. Also, we will research the Dapper source code, which I have just downloaded here. So basically we will talk about how Dapper binds row to model, how to make it to create model with constructor, how to intercept each row in case if you want to do conditional behavior or additional initializing behavior, I don't know. For example, here we have multi-mapping, but it is used with multi-mapping, one-to-one or one-to-many, it doesn't matter. But for me, I wanted to do that with just one model. And I wanted to do some behavior this in lambda just with one model. I don't need to do that with multi-mapping, but there is no any articles how we can do that, how we can intercept each row returned from Dapper and do some kind of behavior. And basically what I've seen in my experience that mostly people just grabbing all, for example, let be the invoice model. People just grab all invoices and then in for each they do some kind of behavior with all invoices. But it's not cool for your performance. So later I will show you how we can do that with lambda, with performance cool way, and so on. Also, we will see how the Dapper works internally. I've just downloaded the source code of Dapper and we can see, and I'll show you how it binds constructor, how it binds properties. Do we really need private setters, any setters, or we need to have public setters? What to do with constructors, public constructors, private constructors, default constructors? All these things will be described later. So let me just create test project where I show you all these things. Actually, it doesn't matter what provider you will use, but I will use Postgres because I love Postgres. You can use, for example, SQL Server, MySQL, it doesn't matter. One thing is really important, Dapper have to have this implemented particular provider. It actually has Postgres, so I'll use Postgres. You can download it from, I don't know, from Postgres website or use Docker. In my case, it is just installed internally into Windows, so I will use like that, but it actually doesn't matter. Okay, let's create a database. Here, for example, let's name it like Dapper. And I'm going to implement some kind of seeder behavior here, like that. So okay, here we have just one table with 3 columns with one primary ID and 2 just string values, which is varchar actually. We set them with simple values like here. Okay, let's start it and see that all is created correctly. slow down, I suppose. Let's refresh here. Yes, we already have seeded data. Okay, so let's start. Let me implement this model which we wanna work with. Let me call that like just model. And for sure it has ID like primary key with private set. Okay, so let's dive about how actually Dapper sets the properties when it retrieves data from SQL database. Actually, internally, it has some kind of structure which stores actual property info. And it will use your public setter or private setter if your property actually has these setters. If you don't have any setters, it will use backfield. That's all. You know, setters is just sugar, and actually the setter is private field of int in my case, and two methods about get or set. In this case, compiler won't create set method actually. So Dapper can't use actually set a method so that we have only one way to do that. We just can set it via backing field. This field which is created by compiler. Actually, Dapper did it like that. I even asked this question in the Stack Overflow. It is my question, and it's also my answer because I run this in tests and see that it actually do it via field here. It's IL generator. It really use IL code with C#, and it is actually sets it via backing field. If you really has the property, then this is internal structure in variable named item will have the property, and it will be set by get property setter and so on and so forth. But if you don't have setter, the Dapper sets it via backing field like that. So if your model doesn't have actually setter, it's not a problem. Dapper will instantiate it anyway, so no worry about that. But according to DDD, leave it as it is, just because let it be. Okay. So here we go. And let me paste the default, not default, but constructor with parameters. And one thing about the constructor, Dapper will try to find actually your constructor if you don't have default one. You need to know that if you just implement not parameterless constructor like that, your model won't have default constructor with no parameters. If you need to have default constructor, you can do that like that. Then you actually have some kind of default constructor, and Dapper will use this constructor. But in case if you don't have this constructor, the Dapper will use this one. But one thing about this constructor, or exactly in these parameters, about these parameters, you need to be aware of it, because Dapper actually will get the parameters with names like that. Here, in that case, it will use just ID, name, and another name with dash and name. And in this case, another name is not another name like that another name. The parameters in your constructor is case insensitive. So in that case, it doesn't matter whether it be another name like that or another name like that. It is case insensitive, but it actually does have matter whether you point your parameter like that with dash or without dash. In this case, if you have this kind of constructor, the Dapper will throw the error, because another name, this kind of another name, is not like this another name because of dash. So how we can work around here, we can do like that. And here we have another name with lowercase, because it is case insensitive, so it doesn't matter whether there is a name like that or like that. In this case, Dapper will instantiate your model. Okay, go back here. So let me write the basic kind of query which is pointed in the documentation of Dapper. So in order to avoid constructor problem, which I pointed a few minutes ago, we need to use as keyword and set name property to this one what we want. We can use generic one or this one. Actually, in that case, it doesn't matter. But I prefer to use generic one. Okay, we actually got all rows, and as you can see, all properties are initialized already. If we just remove private setters, they will be also initialized, because the Dapper will use in that case the backing field. Let me show you. All rows still initialized. Now go back to our primary problem. How we can do that with actually one model and in performance cool style. Because we actually can do that like that. Var row in rows. And here we can do some kind of stuffs with this row. But actually we firstly query all rows, then for each of that rows it's not so cool for your performance, and we can do better. How we can actually do better? Also, I need to point that we will have benchmarks later. So okay, one thing how we can do that is to use also multi-mapping, but with just one model. Let me show you how it can be, but it's not a good solution. We can do that here, model and model, and then you already should know that just here we have two model 1 and model 2, but in order to do that workable, we need to add the split on parameter here, because it's not like ID. We actually have one model here. It cannot be like multi-mapping. The Dapper thinks like that, but split on, and we can point split on like mark. And we can use mark here like that. We just add force field here, but it is not like database field, so no need to actually some kind of alter your table or database. You can do it via SQL. What Dapper will do with this mark, it actually see of this kind of query. Let me show in the SQL tool. Here we will have 4 fields, and since we pointed mock as the split on parameter, then in the first model we will have this row, these 3 fields with ID name and another name, and model 2 here, this model 2 will always be null, because after mock is a split on. After mock, we actually don't have any fields. We don't have the same ID, name, and other name. So that the Dapper will initialize that with null. In other words, we will have two models, these models with empty or null or default value fields, and this model with initialized properties. And here we actually we've got what we need. Actually, we intercept each row, but it will not be so cool for your performance because of multi-mapping internally. So we can do actually better. But how we can do better? Let me explain you and implement it right now. Actually, not everyone knows about this overload of query async, but we actually can intercept. We use generic one query async, but with some kind of different parameters. And the second parameter in that case will be types parameter, in which we need to point what types we will use. In our case, we only use model because it is not multi-binding. We just want to get our model from the database, and that's all. So here we have types, and then we have map. Map is actually your lambda, in which you will have your object. You actually have there your object. And also need to point that this object will have been initialized on this stage. So in your lambda, object will have all properties initialized. You need to know that. And there you can do whatever you want. This is map, is function what Dapper will use with each row which it received from the SQL database. And that's all. But as a last row, you need to return this object. And that's all. You actually have there your object, and you can do whatever you want with this. Need to point also that here we have object, just object class, but we need to cast it to model and point it as single, because here we just got only single model with these three fields, so we actually won't have a lot of objects here. And there we have type safety, because we pointed that we have generic model. We actually can remove that as redundant because we have type of here. I think Dapper will throw error if it is not be like model, but probably it's better to test that. Let me run that and show you that it is actually workable solution, and it actually works. We already in our lambda, and we have this object. It is an array right now, but it has only one model, and this model is already initialized. And there we can do whatever with our model what we wanted to do. And that's all. That's actually the solution. It calls the constructor for sure. Yes. Okay. That's all. And let me show you how it actually works with Dapper source code. In order you can see that it is actually this row which was returned from SQL, and it is performance cool solution. Let's go to Dapper. Okay. Here is actual Dapper overload of this function. We've got types and we've got our lambda, which is map parameter actually. We've got some kind of command definition. It doesn't matter for us. Let's go to multi-map. We got some parameters. Okay. Ensure the connection is open. Get reader. Okay. Okay, multi-map implementation here. Still we have map lambda. And here we use method generate mapper. That's all. Here we have i.reader, which is actually not Dapper object, it is .NET object. It's low-level system data common DLL object. And what does actually? It grabs all fields, which we will have. And it performs with this object, which we got from the database here. And we do this lambda here. This map, where it is. This map lambda, which is actually this one that we use here, that we implemented here. No, sorry. I mean this one. This map variable is actually this lambda in our case. And also, yes, that's all. And also, I will show you the benchmarks of all of these three methods. In order you can just compare them. For example, I'll get method with just query sync without this kind of lambda. Just like that one. We've got this one which we use like a multi-mapping, but with a small workaround with this force mock field. And eventually we will test the benchmark with this solution, so that we can see what is the better solution among all of them. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I will leave the links to my article. I'm going to post it in Medium in order to make it more easier to read. I know a lot of people which actually don't want to watch the videos. And you can just grab all information you need, the most important points for you. Okay, so thank you for your attention and goodbye.